All right, we're live, March 25th. The year is going fast. Q1 is almost done. Fascinating. We have a great guest today. We'll talk about AI in the academia world and then some. But before we get started, let's have our own John Sibley Butler with improved sound.
Busted flat in Baton Rouge, headed for the trains, feeling about as faded as my jeans. Bobby thumbed the diesel down right before it came, took us all the way home to New Orleans. And I pulled my harpoon from my dirty red bandana. I was playing sad while Bobby sing the blues. With them windshields wiping, slapping time, and Bobby's hand in mine, we sing all the songs that driver knew. Freedom just another word for nothing's got to lose. Nothing don't cost nothing, but it's free. And feeling good was always good when Bobby sang the blues. Feeling good was always good for me. Me and Bobby McGee.
Woo! Very nice. Very nice. That was awesome. Well, lots of stuff going on. Open Claw continues to tear the world apart, growing like crazy. Jensen Huang said this is the latest thing. It's bigger than ChatGPT, it's bigger than the web, is bigger than everything. He's putting some $100 billion behind it. ARM announced a new chip. So ARM is no longer going to just license technology. They're going to make chips now, especially on the CPU side. The president announced a tech council to help him make decisions on technology. I think that is the smartest thing he could have ever figured out to do. We need more engineers helping run the country, for sure. And in general, we have reasonable weather in Austin, where I am, and the grid seems to be functioning very well. Everything is going fine. I did read in the news quite a bit that the country of Cuba is having tremendous problems with outages, and all their infrastructure is collapsing. Sounds like they need help from the U.S. We can get on a plane and go fix things down there. But before we get rolling about all kinds of things, wonder what's in John Sibley Butler's world.
Well, my world, good to see everybody, but my world is all about AI now. It's about former students, and I give you some cases, and about students trying to figure out what they want to do in life. I give the first case of an undergraduate, probably right before the pandemic, and he wants to go to graduate school. He was an accounting major. He wants to serve as a consultant. And the question is, should he go to Northwestern University for grad school, or should he go to Columbia? And the decision is that, well, if you want to do finance, you should be at Columbia. Northwestern is much broader, is more of a broader school. And behind it all is AI. In the business world, whether it's consulting or whether it's law school, people are very, very cognizant of the influence of machine learning, of AI. And they're asking those questions that they never asked before. That is, if I go get an MBA, not if it's worth it, because what's worth it are the people that you meet as you go through life together, right? But the placements are changing. And of course, education has to change with the whole technology, just as we did with the internet. But that is really out there. And so it gets to be a very, very interesting how people are trying to make decisions. And the other one, of course, is another case where people just lose their jobs. And they're losing their jobs because of AI. And it's all about repetitiveness. And we talked about strategy in the business where you got to go to thinking, if you will, thinking kinds of occupations. So that's there, and it's very, very interesting. The other thing that's interesting, and I'll just say I did have a conversation with people from our country, we just put it like that, and about rare earths and what's needed for the future, and what's needed to compete, if you will, with China in their form of government, and how rare earths will be the defining technology enabler of the future. That is, when I say that, Andreas, it's a matter of how do you keep America competitive, if you will, on the business side, and what's needed going forward. As you know, there's been a lot of countries cutting people off from things, whether it's chips or what do you need to create chips. And I think America is trying to get in a position where it has the rare earths to do those kinds of things. And finally, I would say that the creativity is there here, but here's the deal, Andreas. People are not sure what they should go into now.
Hmm.
Okay? They used to say, Dr. Butler, I need somebody to write the algorithms for me or to create an app now. Now I can just create an app now through AI.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Butler, I need somebody to write the algorithms for. No, you can just do that with AI. So the most interesting question is that we're being pushed back to college as a learning center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking center, right? As I said before, one of my favorite courses was biology. I want to know what goes on in the human body, or zoology. Had no interest in med school, but I want to know about the flapping of the butterfly wings. And
Mm-hmm.
professors study that, forever. So all of these things are very, very interesting. So we're being pushed as a learning society again. And that learning society is all about how do you think about business models in the business world, and how do you combine the new technology with the business world. And I'll say this, we are in the formative years of AI. We're at the beginning. We haven't even scratched the surface of what this thing can do. And I also think you have to go along and get along with it all. In the next generation, it'll be just like us using the computers, or just like people driving a car or flying an airplane. We're living in some of the most interesting time, because over it all is a war. And as a former soldier myself, I'm not sure what the runway is. So it's an interesting time to listen to the news. But I'll say this, I was in Vietnam when everybody else was watching it on TV. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that I'm not of that age now and will be shipped to a war zone before I'm 20.
Yeah. Yeah. Llewellyn?
Well, of course, Johnny is absolutely right. The overriding thing is that the ship of state is healing, and it's healing because of the effect of the Trump war in the Middle East. But it is also damaging the whole world. The Strait of Hormuz, which anyone who knows anything about the Middle East realized would be a choke point, somehow we overlooked it. I went through a great study of the Strait of Hormuz during the energy crisis, where I was publisher of the Energy Daily, and so it was of great concern. And it was always part of all conversations about what you do in the Middle East and whether it will cut off the oil supply, not just the oil supply from Iran, but from many other countries there. It has happened. We've gone into a war ill prepared, without a strategy and without an exit plan. And we are now seeking a peace, and nobody seems to want to make peace. Somehow there was an expectation that Iran would capitulate and it would also remain whole, but it's fragmented. We don't know who we're dealing with. And the president says he's negotiating with the Iranians. The Iranians say they are not negotiating with us, which would seem to be a bit of a disconnect. And at the moment, they're suffering a lot. Their infrastructure is getting destroyed. But for now, at the moment, they are in a rather dominant position, because the world is desperate to get the strait open, the formal flow of oil that we've got so used to, about 20%, maybe more, including liquefied natural gas that comes through the strait, and it's not moving now. Also, oil facilities have been damaged, and natural gas facilities have been damaged in Qatar and Saudi. And so there won't be, on the day of peace, a sudden return to the status quo ante. It won't happen. One of the consequences of shortage of oil is that we will have fairly long-term inflation throughout the world, and inflation has consequences. In 1974, 23 heads of state lost their jobs because of the inflation that was caused by the oil crisis of the winter of the fall of 1973, the so-called Arab oil embargo, or in fact it was the Arab oil embargo. So we're in a very precarious situation. We've shaken the timbers of the world, but we have no idea what comes next or where our role is. I think, unfortunately, our role will be diminished as a world power because we have offended and insulted our traditional allies, those countries, primarily in Europe, but also including the so-called Anglosphere, that have been with us foursquare since the end of the Second World War. Now they are not going to be with us. They're going to be looking to new alliances. So far in the present predicament, the winners are China and Russia. Is that what we had in mind? Was that what was the end result foreseen by the president? I suspect it was not, but there has been a lot of hubris and a lot too little thinking, and we're in a very bad situation. The world is in a bad situation. AI is coming at us. It's coming at us very fast. It's going to affect a lot of employment very soon. Something like 80%, 86%, I beg your pardon, of the most vulnerable jobs are jobs done by women. There are predictions, including one by the United Nations, that by 2030, 6 million American women may have lost their jobs. That is huge. It is not going to go unnoticed. We had essentially no growth in employment in 2025 and a lot of growth in employment in 2024. The first months of this year, it's been slightly better, but by and large, we're going to be into a period of tremendous labor adjustment where we find new jobs for people who have been displaced by AI, and what those jobs are is not immediately apparent. As a rough guide, people who move things, whose work involves movement, touching, lifting, they're secure for now. That includes almost the entire world of healthcare and manufacturing, to a much lesser extent because robots are taking over, if they have not already done so, factories. But it does involve the whole sphere of repairing. Anything that needs repairing will be repaired for quite some time by human beings. So that there will be a new emphasis on trade schools and people being taught the trades. There is an enormous shortage of trades. And once again, national policy seems to be at odds with the national need. We are short of farm laborers. We are short of a whole sphere of artisans, and yet we are arresting them and deporting them as fast as we can, which seems to me idiotic, unplanned, brainless, and emotional, not well thought out. Desperate need to do some thinking before we take actions. Actions have consequences.
All right. Well, as one would say, the Chinese logo for crisis and opportunity is that yin yang thing. And may you live in interesting times, and all this chaos sometimes creates incredible opportunity, even though the opportunities may be not as freewheeling as they used to be, but interesting times nevertheless. And I am wondering if when it comes to coding and students and education of the future, if our next guest, Dr. Tahir Ekin, who is the field's chair in business analytics at Texas State and the director of the Texas State Center for Analytics and Data Science, and a endowed professor in the Department of Information Systems Analytics at McCoy College of Business at Texas State University, would have a perspective on all these issues.
Yeah, thank you, Andres, for the invitation, and thank you, John and Llewellyn, for having me. So yeah, I mean, AI is also what we are talking about because it first, from two angles, right? It impacts our students, the future of workforce. Second is it impacts the research workflow. So it has the transformational power to change what we have been doing in academia for so long, right? So I think everyone has been aware of that. So there has been lots of conversations. Only in this month, in the university, we had this AI in Teaching and Learning Symposium. And obviously, we had South by Southwest in Austin. And then I also was able to attend the leadership summit of research center directors within the states in Arizona last week. So I think a few things that come out of these discussions, I mean, we are in the early years, but there is already a gap. Some people are still hesitant. Some people have been experimenting with all the new tools. So even in academia, if this gap is widening, I mean, I can't imagine across the society how that would impact the future of workforce. I think that's one of the major things. We are all talking in our circles where people have been aware of these challenges, where people are potentially above average AI literate. But I think that gap is widening, and that will also increase the inequality within our nation. So, and I think that's one of the things. Another thing I think that have repeatedly come to surface is I think John made a comment about the impact on the especially entry level jobs, right? So most of our students were getting those entry jobs, especially our undergraduate students. And basically, I think one of the immediate challenges is now, especially if they have a hard time, our students have a hard time getting those jobs, how do we prepare them? So we have, a few obvious strategies like experiential learning, closer industry collaboration. That seems to work. I think in the future we need to build on them a little bit more even because at least the way I see things now, the first everything is kind of pulled back. So first, let's say 5 years of your career, now companies would expect that to happen during the college time, right? And during college, we expect them to come up with some of these, at least AI skills and whatnot, from the high school so that we can build on them. So, I mean, all the ecosystem is changing. I mean, obviously, the pace of the transformation is very rapid. And I mean, we are only human. We have these existing systems for so long. I think we are sometimes having hard time to adjust. And in the interim, doing these transformational years, these 5, 10 years that can create both economic consequences and human consequences, right? So I think that's something we all need to be aware of. That's also a big question about the future of the academia and universities. We need to be more agile, and while we are all aware, it doesn't happen overnight. So, I mean, I can build on, but I would wonder what John and Llewellyn and you think about this, Andres.
Yeah, Johnny,
You are
you're
muted.
muted. You're muted.
It's really good to look upon LBJ's alma mater, one of the most gorgeous campuses in the entire state of Texas, very hilly with wonderful schools. But let me just say this also. You're sitting there as a business professor. It's amazing how analytics has moved from psychology, sociology, and economics to the business school. I think in Texas, we taught one of the first analytics class, but we had to get the professors from sociology or psychology because that's all sociologists do in the old days, is do census data, right, and do what we call big data now. So my question is this. if you look at, as a business professor, which I just retired as one, although my background is statistics and organization science, right? How we bring analytics into the business school? My preference is to get rid of case studies and to make all business students statisticians rather than case studies people. So my question is, if you look at the faculty, right? So my last job, I was chair of the management department, and I always took my statisticians from Northwestern because they had a strong social science background, and they kind of knew statistics. And you have to publish. What are you doing for the faculty in the business school, which really comes out of a, let's do it and go get a job, to make it more, quote, well, social analytics. What are you doing to do that?
Yeah. No, actually, that's a great point. And so my background is in applied statistics, decision sciences.
Oh, you wanted me. Okay.
Right.
Okay, good.
So while I'm a professor in business school, but one of the things I think the interdisciplinary aspect is becoming more important, right? And that's something we are also asking our students to consider. You may not only get a great job with a degree in analytics, but you may need a niche as well, so that you would be more aware of analytics in finance, analytics in marketing, or other disciplines. I think that will be even become a bigger trend. And one of the things we are also trying to do with the center. Center is a university level body, so we are aware that these methods or data or subject domain expertise traditionally in academic silos, right, in universities. So we are trying to basically bring people together, but bring students together as well. So, for instance, we have this student engagement council that has 12 data analytics related student organizations, where uh, basically geographical information system students can interact with engineering students and business students. So normally, they would be more in their silos. So in terms of faculty, I think uh, those interactions, bringing guest lecturers, like breaking the silos more, is the key, would be the key going forward. And I think another angle to this is some of what we are doing is commoditized right now, right? Data analysis or basically coding. So how do we still stay relevant? Where basically some of what we teach become commoditized. I think it's becoming more specific and incorporating human aspect into what we teach is
Right. When
potential.
talking to John Butler, I'm sure you know John Butler at UT, not me, who runs our master finance program. And so when
Right.
Wall Street said, the MBA is a little general, so it's really a master's of statistics, but you can't call it that because nobody will take it, right? So I think it's a great thing. And so as universities change, and as professional schools change, and when I say professional schools, I've always thought of teaching in a business school. I was teaching more of a trade school, and teaching in social organization. I was teaching more of a liberal arts school of thinking. That is, I don't want my MBA students questioning me. Just go do it. Just go do what Michael Porter said, right? So as we do that, what's the mix and the change of your students? Because all of a sudden in my area, right, everybody want to go to business school, which was unheard of when I was in college, right? If you want to go major in accounting, go major in accounting. But there was no such thing as a comprehensive business school. So what we did at Texas, we brought engineering in through MIS, right, and computer science through MIS, right, and then we had a master of with marketing. We brought psychology in, right. So as you see, is there a future for universities now, or is it going to be more, let's go get a trade school and do great in life, or is it going to be just for the wealthy to spend for the tuition, and the working bees go to trade school and do a great job and have a great life in America?
Right. I think we are also trying to do some of that, but another aspect is also modular curriculum, right? So I think all universities are trying to adjust to the fact that students these days, especially in AI transformed world, is not the same students that we were or even 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So I think obviously the academic institutions change slowly, but basically there is that market demand we are all trying to respond to. So I think one of the things is basically, especially in this AI transformed world, pretty much, especially in areas that are commoditized through AI, I think it will be AI first or AI native, right, as they call
Yes.
it, because our students are becoming more of that. And then you build on still those particular areas because, especially in high stakes applications, that's one of the challenges of AI, which I don't think is going anywhere, is the reliability, is the edge cases, right?
Right.
That's when you need the human as part of the governance framework, as part of the compliance needs.
And the thinking
So
part, yes, I agree.
exactly.
It's a
So
great challenge, and I've talked to a lot of people and finally, let me just say this. I was talking to, there are tools now that professors are using. They can tell if the paper comes from AI, the number of types that the student typed, if the student typed the paper or not, if they cut and paste the paper now. So it looks like to me, in talking to my colleagues, they are way ahead of the students who want to turn in AI papers without thinking. So right now, what's grading the papers is not in the traditional sense. You can put it through a program. You can tell if the student typed or not on their computer or typed by another person. Now, if it was cut and paste. Have you heard of that stuff? It's amazing.
right, and yeah, I think my personal opinion is, people find a way to cheat, right? So just the forms of cheating may change. So I'm never a
I
big
like that.
proponent of
Cheating may
using
change.
those AI detection type of systems. But I think what AI has been doing now to us, it's forcing us to change the way we assess
Mm-hmm.
in both education, but also in the business workplace,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the results, the output is already there. So it becomes more about the progress and basically value that you are bringing and the reliability of the outcome that you have.
Okay.
So I think that's the mindset I have, and that's what I basically foresee, especially the high stakes business applications to go towards, because we have the result now. Again, we
Yeah.
are not sure if it's good or not,
All right.
but
And finally, let me say this before my distinguished colleague come in. I think marketing might be dead, right? Which comes out of psychology. So in other words, we're seeing, and Andreas and I, we're seeing billion-dollar companies with no employees.
Mm-hmm.
So why do I need marketing now? Because all of the social psychology and sociology is now built into the algorithm. That is the networking theory, the cluster theory, the coming together as a team theory. Do I need marketing anymore as a discipline? Just
so
asking.
it's a very interesting question, right? We are also having these debates among each other. It depends on your worldview. If you are interested in the average person, marketing to the average person,
Mm-hmm.
marketing could be that, right? Because obviously we have the patterns, big data, AI algorithms do a quite good job. But now we may be at the next level. Rather than the basically small number of buckets, we may go through the basic the holy land, which is the personalized marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would want to market to the John Sibley Butler. So how do I do that? John Butler is a complex person. So then there comes the human aspects, and there may be still need for a human. So
Okay.
it will be transformed a lot, but I think now the needs have been elevated. The problems are different.
Great answer. Great answer.
Llewellyn.
This is very interesting. Let me ask you, Tahir, what is the input that you're seeing into the world of AI coming from the defense? From historically, wars have always driven technology. In what way is AI now being driven by the two major wars which are going on, Iran and Ukraine?
I mean, I think the reality is that, as you mentioned, Llewellyn, especially Second World War, right? When you think about most of the analytical models we are using right now, they all, one way or another, were built around that time. So I think
No, I'm
war,
thinking about technology in general, not necessarily
right,
analytics. For
right.
example, the First World War saw a huge improvement in gun rifling and machine guns, and of course the countermeasure was the tank, which came out of the First World War, and giant evolution, really, or perfection of internal combustion engines, because the war machines needed to be very reliable, and trucks and everything else improved as a consequence of the pressure from the war. And this has always happened, going back at any point in history. I wonder if you'd seen in AI any immediate improvements or leaps forwards because of these two conflagrations.
So yeah, and I think you partially gave me a great hint, right, in terms of answering this. They require speed. So, and speed, basically, we come up with things. It could be AI models in this case, fast, and we just see the consequences right away when you think about it. If it fails or if it's something to build on. So in the traditional research, obviously, or in the industry research, there is the market driven, but nothing is basically as demanding as the war itself. So I can see basically potential accelerative power. And overall, as we all know, I guess Department of War has been using AI enhanced applications across. And when it comes to technology, the war in Ukraine has given us, unfortunately, a great test bed, right? In that sense, with drones and other autonomous weapons that are AI enhanced. So we are already seeing that impact because I think the feedback is very quick. So, and then because otherwise you build in a test environment, you may not get the feedback right away. So progress is slower in a standard setup.
That's interesting. Let's shift. One of the things in the 5 years or so that I have been paying a lot of attention to AI, made many television programs and speeches, attended a lot of conferences. It just seems to me to be a passion for the technology in academia, but less interest in the effect of the technology. Like who actually will lose a job, or whose job will be harder, whose job will be easier, and how does the ordinary person deal with the anxiety which is implicit in the arrival of so revolutionary a technology?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, right? Given the way that I guess engineers, computer scientists are trained. Again, unfortunately, it has been more in silos, so that system-wide thinking may not be that imminent. And I guess, obviously, in capitalism, things sometimes are also more profit-driven than consequence-driven. So because it becomes someone else's problem 10 years later, type of thinking. I also share the same concern, to be frank.
How do you use AI personally?
I use AI mostly as I guess, for some of the repetitive tasks. So let's say that I have already a presentation on a topic and I want to tailor it to a particular audience. So I would use AI. I sometimes use it as a thought partner. I have a number of ideas, and basically, I would use it, basically do the back and forth and see what may already have been out there, and it gets me to good references at times. But overall, yeah, I mean, I use AI, you could say daily. I also like, I guess some of my research is on developing resilient AI methods now. But yeah, it's it's amazing, right? The basically the results are probabilistic. They are not 100% accurate, but in terms of basically the back and forth and the way it makes you think of things that you haven't thought of in that way, has been very helpful.
I have been fortunate to get some insight ahead of the field in things like agents. The thing I'm hearing about now is small language models,
Mhm.
specific. What do small language models mean to you?
So small language models, basically, so large language models, what we also call as frontier like world models, uh, they are trained with all the information, all the data available, so they can answer any question, right? But then the question becomes reliability, because when you know everything, you may not know anything, right? So and with the small language models, we can train them basically in a particular area, and their results become more reliable. And the way I see it, with my applied statistics background, it's almost like traditional, basically, statistical way of modeling in a scaled manner. So, because that was the challenge with the traditional statistical modeling, statisticians were always, they are more scientists, right? They are more after reliability and accuracy and, how wrong we are, because we know all models are wrong. So, but some are useful, right? As the box saying goes. But with the small language models, now you can increase it at scale. And with the multimodality, obviously language just refers to text, but multimodality, you also have the option of adding audio, video, also to your data where model can learn from in that particular area. So they become basically more efficient. And when you think about it, let's say you are coming up with an advertising campaign. So you, I mean, still, let's say ChatGPTs of the world or clouds of the world may give you a pretty good answer. But then if you train it with just specific marketing data, especially if you have also some data about your customers in your company, and you may have built a small language model with your company internal data, that becomes more powerful.
Andres, may I make
Yeah.
I was interested in what Johnny said about marketing may become irrelevant. I beg to differ, because I think marketing depends on the arrival in the marketplace of that which was not predictable. And you won't have it marketed. For example, where did rock and roll come from? Where does the passion for this or that, or a particular trend, or an entirely new concept come from? And marketing has to be very agile to sell the new. It seems to me that a kind of inflexibility that might be built into a logarithm will preclude that, and there will always be a role for marketing, because the market will always be shifting and will never be static. In the nature of a market, it's not static. It's always open, both to new ideas, but also to shortages and other pressures on it, like the abandonment of a particular material because it's found out asbestos comes to mind to have a health consequence. When I was a boy, asbestos was magic stuff. It stopped fires. People would wear asbestos clothes if they could. And then we found there was a health consequence to asbestos. Anyway, that's just my thought. The marketing will survive because markets are dynamic and variable and not constant, and you can't lock in marketing. That's just my thought.
Good thought.
So there seems to be, and Dr. Tahim may have a unique perspective on this, but there seems to be an interesting impact, or maybe multiple impacts on AI as it relates to culture and as it relates to the new workforce, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas. I am wondering how social media can be, I don't know, managed. We are seeing that the new generations in some countries are taking the stance of abolishing the use of, social media at a certain age, which I think makes them, um, puts those people perhaps at that disadvantage long term. But when you think about privacy, data security, bias, inequality, the digital divide being bigger, the lack of human interaction. What do you think, Dr. Tahir, is the role of the faculty, of the professor, of the inspiring teacher, to help people navigate this?
So I think it's not a one-sided information exchange anymore. It never was, but especially at these times, it definitely is not, right? Because believe it or not, now our students are obviously more AI native, so they teach us more things, right? Overall, inspiring faculty or not. So I see this as a basically bilateral communication. But one of the things I think at this I've been trying to preach is um, getting to outcomes is not important, right? It's progress, the way that you think, uh, and you would like to have as many as basically, let's say, decision-making experiments while you are in
Mm-hmm.
college, because you can fail, and that's okay, right? You learn from that failure, and the consequences would be less. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's especially with the AI tools providing us the answers, it's becoming a bigger thing. And overall, also as a person, right? It's interesting to navigate this world. You just mentioned something, the trade-offs between data security, but you would also like to be part of the ecosystem so
Mm-hmm.
that the models would also incorporate your existence to a certain
Mm-hmm.
level, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a question that I keep asking myself as well. So sometimes, you have these initial set of ideas, and do you want to share it with a large language model? Because
Mm-hmm.
even at small, would you be impacting the feature in some sense? Because it picks it up, trains it on it, and it impacts the feature conversations, right? So I think that's one of the interesting questions, right? How we were using technology data as a tool. Obviously, it has been changing humanity as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
Last, let's say, 200 years since industrial revolution. But
Mm-hmm.
now, because the interaction is so imminent, and now we will be outsourcing some of what we do in our lives to technology, I think the impact would be even bigger. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a question I also keep asking. I don't know if anyone else have any thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is the question, because as a professor, especially with the undergraduates, everything should be questioned, and this is how new enterprises came to be. That is, you go into class and you're teaching them to think. You want them to think and question all of the enterprises in terms of their business models, right? And like you said, they would come up with an idea and they would say, "Well, Dr. Ball, I have an idea, but I don't want to tell the class." Now they're telling the entire world. So my question to you is, as a professor, uh, you teach people how to think, how to question what's already there, how to question what's the next variation of an airplane or a helicopter, how to
Mm-hmm.
question the business model of a Walmart. How do you, and then all of a sudden the students have new ideas. You come up with Southwest Airlines, you come up with Micah Dell and Dell Computers, you come up with John Mackey and Whole Foods. Those people who question. So how do you get students to think now when you walk into a class? Because my thing with students is this, has always been, I want to teach you how to think, especially at the undergraduate level. How do you get students to think now with AI?
Yeah, that's the, I think, million-dollar question everyone across the world has been trying to answer. And I have been part of some of the national AI education conversations. I think we are all aware. I think the current system needs to change, needs to be transformed. Uh, but overall, I think in terms of thinking, and that's also the dilemma, right? For instance, Andres mentioned about underage social media technology use. So if it becomes that native at an early age, would it then replace your original thinking abilities? Because some of the best questions I have heard are from my 4-year-old. So,
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
because we kind of are born with that ability, right? Because there is no shame in asking questions and questioning the world, and they have unlimited, basically, chances of failure. So, how do we keep that, basically, intellectual curiosity and question asking ability, while also giving them the ability to survive in a AI native world? So, and I think, again, there may be some still guidelines. I don't think, like the Wild West approach, them using all tools, is the response to that. And those guidelines, again, do you use AI as a thought partner, or another student in the class, that could help you do the back and forth, or listen to the conversation and act like the missing piece. So, because in terms of diversity, also that, diversity of thoughts, that could also be very important. Uh, but unfortunately, I may not have the answer for you. I think
Well,
it's
I think,
easier to say that you should enhance your critical thinking
well,
ability than doing that, right?
let me boost your ego, Professor. Right now, your skills are the most important skills in the business world because you bring to the table both analytics, the understanding of data, and the way, as a statistician, when you say small business model, to me, that's just a selective, selective in the data. So my question to you is this, and I did a ton of consulting as a professor, and it was all around statistics and organizational science, right? With large companies. Are you doing any consulting, if I may ask? And I know we got to turn it in. Are
Yeah, I
companies coming to
do.
you as a statistician and saying that we have all of this data? And let me tell you one story. I had a firm come to me and they said, Dr. Butler, we need somebody to understand with all of the data that we have. I went to a PhD in statistics and sociology. They paid her $260,000, and this was 6 years ago, to come work for them, right? So what did you do? I mean, how are you enhancing industry? Are you doing consulting there? Because you are the bomb. You are the bomb. You didn't, you
So,
got it all.
not really, but I guess I would say, so one of my focal areas last 15 years is healthcare fraud detection. So, basically, I started consulting to Centers for Medicaid Services back when
Mm-hmm.
I was in DC. And in Texas, we had some projects with Texas Health and Human Services. Sometimes I work with lawyers
AI pen test
in terms
unleashes
of
hundreds of agents against site. Attack.
Go ahead.
in
Sorry.
terms of providing statistical expertise. Uh, but overall, yeah, I mean, having real change in grant systems is not easy, right? I don't know if that's what you are trying to get to.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's what
Right.
we are facing right now, right? We have these powerful AI tools,
Mm-hmm.
but when it comes to return on investment in terms of the impact on businesses, although the change in basically work is already happening or jobs are already happening, the ROI of AI is still not fully materialized, right? And
Right. And you
obviously,
need, as you know, you need a theory about data.
mhm,
And business is about people, not
right,
about a machine. It's about what people do.
exactly,
It's a
exactly.
science. It is a social science of people. And so you should be able to walk in as a statistician, right? And say, we think we should run the equation on X, Y, and Z because right now they are just drowning in data and it's, data by analytics and they don't know which way to go.
Yeah, but then when it comes to real implementation, it
Mm-hmm.
still comes to people.
That's right. That's the strategy part. You're
Right.
exactly right. That's good
Now
stuff.
let me ask you all a question that I think it's a cornerstone of where we are. I think that you all would agree that we are, whatever analogy you want to use, the first quarter of the football game, the first inning of the baseball game. ChatGPT just made it possible for the layman to enjoy the ride of AI, which had been around for 50 years in terms of computer science dream and studied and focus area. But now it's real, it's touching the layman. So there are two things that I think are fascinating, and I'm curious your thoughts, all of you. Uh, when it comes to a corporation and the data in a corporation, my intellectual property, my finances, the status of my employees, the data, what's going on in the company, my supply chain, my contracts, my payments, and all that information. I don't want that to be in the cloud, but I want to harness this data as Citigroup or JP Morgan or Nestle or Coca-Cola. I have gazillions of information. Shouldn't I be using my own private LLM instead of using, OpenAI and what have you? And isn't that really the future of AI, the build out of private models, sort of the issue with Anthropic and the federal government as it relates to the Anthropic not wanting their tools to be used for evil or whatever you want to call it. In the end, there are gardens of information that don't want to be tainted with others types of information. So, what are your thoughts about private AI versus public AI?
I think
Andreas,
it's
to me,
going to
it's just
have
like
to come. I think that corporations are very vulnerable at the moment, particularly with the introduction of agents. That people don't understand the dynamics of agents, uh, and that people are using them quite low down on the chain and leaving uh, great vulnerability. That data and information is going to the web that nobody wanted on the web because people simply don't realize what they are doing. And we're going to have a large tightening up of security in all organizations to prevent this abundance of data going public when it should be private. This applies to a lot of things, applies to individuals as well as to corporations. But the economic consequence in a large corporation could be devastating. It is a great vulnerability, and it's a good question.
well, Andreas, I think that we all have the choice to go back to our private servers in our house and our private servers in our businesses. Remember that there was a time when all of the data was down in the basement on a private server.
Mm-hmm.
Then they created something called a cloud. They convinced everybody to go to the cloud and start charging them money. But right now, I can have my own private server in my house where I can only
Mm-hmm.
get to. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're speaking of. But remember, that could be expensive. If I'm a small enterprise, I can just put everything on the cloud with everybody else and find everybody else that's responsible for taking care of my data. So
Mm-hmm.
Llewellyn is right. We have choices, but right now, what would happen if everybody went back to their private servers? I mean, how long would it take me, Andreas, to set up a private server in my house? Let me ask you this, Andrea. Do you have a private server?
Yes.
See? You have a private server, right? All of my stuff is on the cloud, right? And you have it backed up, but your server is private. I cannot get on your servers. So if you can imagine that at McCoy School of Business, we had a private service. Everything was backed up on not on the big internet, but it was all
Yep.
in house at Texas. So do you think that, well, I asked the professor, do you think that enterprises will ever revert from the cloud back to private clouds?
I think we are already seeing the hybrid approaches, right? You know, I think it because of especially the security considerations, and now everyone wants to own their own data and results in the basic the medium that they choose. So I think we are seeing the hybrid model, not necessarily only sole private. But yeah, I think for the uh, personalization side, I feel like it's also about literacy a little bit, like because our individual data is important among, let's say, 8 plus billion people data,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on how you record it and utilize it, some data may be worth more, right, in an open market. So
Sure.
I think the question becomes how long it would take for people to more internalize that, and I want to. It's worth going through the trouble to have my own server, have my own data, and then eventually there would be a basically more liquid market for that when you think about it. Because if the feature is about edge cases, personalization, then I may pay this much for Andres's data, so I can, especially if I want to reach another 100 people that look like Andres.
I think that's
Right.
good. Andre has a theory about that too. Andre thinks
Yeah.
that he can solve poverty like that.
So, Dr. Ekin, I want you to tell us, what are you working on the next 6 months? What's in front of you? Be shameless about promoting your things and what's going on.
So on the individual level, I'm working on fraud detection. Basically, the idea in fraud detection is most of the methods are unfortunately static, and then we try to recover the basically overpaid funds after fraud is committed, and we are just recovering 10 cents per dollar. So I'm trying to bring some of the game theoretical way of thinking and treating the data generators, fraudsters, as smart adversaries. So it also links to adversarial machine learning and AI, and we are trying to build that ecosystem and come up with more adaptive fraud detection frameworks.
Okay.
Because fraudsters, for instance, game the thresholds, and we lose lots of money just because of that. So individually, that's the research I've been focusing on. I guess organizationally, through the center, we have started this AI ready AI literacy program, and then we have identified 3 tiers. We are trying to decrease that gap among the tiers, and some people even like still are hesitant in subject domains because they have tried AI 2 years ago once and didn't like it, or they are afraid of the privacy or societal considerations. So we are kind of trying to preach there is good and bad, but there is no option of not touching the tool for some folks. And then for folks in the higher tiers, we are working with them to incorporate AI into their research workflows or come up with AI enhanced products. So yeah, I think in 2 minutes, that's what I have for the next 6 months.
John Sibley Butler, final thoughts.
Well, I just think it's very, very dynamic. Of course, as a professor, I understand the issue that he's dealing with, but also as a university, as a state university, we must prepare students to think. What we've done at the Texas University is turn them into a model that really enhances the economics of the state, whether it's from the political arena or from the economic arena, and more importantly, from the startup arena. We made a decision to do that, years ago. And I think he's at one of the great up-and-coming institutions, I might add, Texas State. What are you at, 40 students now? 40,000 students now?
It was 44 as of
And one
last
of the
semester.
prettiest parts, and you're 30 minutes from Austin, Texas. And I always thought that LBJ just gave praise to that university. It was a teaching school when he went there. But more importantly, professors, let me tell you now, as we prepare students, they've got to be analytics. I don't care if they're business, anthropology, music, it all comes together now to do well in the business world. Because the business world now is about data and it's about predicting those models of success. And as Andreas like to point out, we're seeing enterprises now $1 billion with absolutely no employees. So we can do everything on the cloud, but we must understand the analytics moving forward. And I think the data has it can really drive us, but we have to have the people to think and to be strategy. And remember this also, it becomes more important to bring an industry to lecture to the students who's actually out doing AI and affected by AI, people from the boardroom, just not the professors who's doing the research, but people who are really working out there, that's been working out there all of their life to see how it has changed their lives.
Llewellyn, final thoughts.
I just always have this thought when I hear people talking about data, and John, of course, is an expert on data and Tahir. But that is, to me, as a words person, data follows the event. It doesn't precede or determine the event, but it follows it. Flair and imagination lead the event. And if you're going to think, you've got to be very careful that you're not inadvertently challenging people into traditional thought patterns, because this is a tipping point in human history, and traditional thought patterns are not going to get us to where we're going. That's sort of, in a nutshell, what I think.
Fascinating. Well, Dr. Tahir Ekin, always a pleasure. We shall have you back and keep up with your work and excellent journey. Wish you the best. We shall have coffee sometime soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Very interesting. I appreciate your joining us.
Appreciate you.
Johnny, take us away.
Everybody's going away. Yeah. They said they're moving to LA. There's just no one else around. Everybody's leaving town. You know, some gotta win and some gotta lose. Good time Charlie's got the blues. That's what AI. We're all good time Charlies. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a great week.
Mm-hmm.